My name is Chad. Here's a little bit of my story, of my testimony. I was drinking real heavy for years. I drank heavy since I was a teenager. And about four years ago, I was drinking. We started drinking in the morning, and we went to go get some more alcohol, and my vehicle ran out of gas, which is kind of funny because we had to have been on empty because the place we went to go get more alcohol was only a few miles outside of town. And we ran out of gas, and I coasted my car into where we purchased the alcohol. There was two guys with me. They went back to go get gas cans. And I was sitting there waiting, and they were taking forever. And I reached around my pocket. I had enough change to buy a 40. So I bought a 40, and I was sitting there, and I started thinking, well, I'm going to get in trouble and end up going to jail. I need to get back on the reservation where I'll be safe. So I started my truck, and I started going up the hill, and I went just a little ways, and of course it ran out of gas again. I tried to turn around, and my truck went down in the ditch and by a barbed wire fence, and I was sitting there. And I thought, well, I'll just wait till they bring the gas back. I was sitting there drinking my beer and sitting in the passenger seat of my truck, then drinking my beer, and I looked up, and I seen a highway patrolman turning, coming towards me. And the next thing I know, he's looking in my window. And he said, boy, if the keys are in your pocket, I'm going to charge you with a DWI. And I said, they're not, the keys aren't in my pocket. Because when I seen him, I reached over, I grabbed the keys, and I threw them out the window. Well, he was really upset that he couldn't charge me with anything because of my keys. And, excuse me. Anyways, he decided that he was going to tow my pickup because he couldn't arrest me. Well, that really made me mad, and I started cussing him and cursing him and calling him all kinds of names and everything. And then he's like, okay, then I'm going to just arrest you for disorderly conduct. And he had me put my hands on the hood of his car. And he said, do you have any knives or sharp objects in your pocket? And I was really intoxicated. I was like, no. And he pulled my pocket knife out. And as soon as he pulled my pocket knife out, I started laughing because I thought it was funny because I forgot I even had a knife in my pocket. Well, he grabbed my wrist and bent it back, and I was a deputy sheriff when I lived in Arkansas about 15 years ago. So as soon as he put police moves on me, I put police moves back on him. And I had him on the ground, and I pulled his gun out. And I was so mad I was going to shoot him. And even to this day, I still can't believe, because I was so close to pulling that trigger. But it had to be God in my life, God acting right then. Because I remember I was going to shoot him, and something I had this thought just go through my head real fast. If I do this, I'm going to spend the rest of my life in jail. And that's when, and I realized, I was like, whoa, what am I doing? And I put his gun back in his holster, and I stood up. I let go of him, I stood up, I put my hands behind my back, and I let him put the handcuffs on me. And then I drank for another year, or maybe 2 years after that, I was still drinking. And me and my wife, this is before we got married, we were drinking almost every day. And when I think back on it now, we got to where we were drinking. She had her group of friends she was drinking with, and I had my group of friends I was drinking with, and we didn't drink together that much. But one night or I guess it was in the daytime, we were drinking, and she went to go get some more vodka, and I was passed out on the couch. And it's probably a good thing I was so drunk I don't really remember, because her son did something to me, and all I could think when I woke up was I'm going to kill him. And I chased him out the door, and I caught him out in the middle of the street, and I had him down on the ground, and I was just beating the fire out of him. I was just punching him and punching him and punching him. The neighbors called the police on me, and the police came, and my house was a total mess because we'd been drinking for a month, I think, straight almost. My house was a mess. My wife ended up getting arrested. They took our 3-year-old son, or 2-year-old at that time, 2-year-old son. They took our 2-year-old son, and we both went to jail. She had a warrant, and they took me to Chamberlain. And when we got out of jail, I was just thinking, man, what are we going to do? We got to do something. But my wife had kids taken away when she was like 10 years before that. And she tried to get them back, and ended up not getting them back anyways. So she didn't even want to try. And I was like, no, we're not going to not try. We're going to get our son back. And my background of being in law enforcement and going to court and stuff really helped me, because I just went up in front of the judge, and I started talking to the judge just like I talk to anybody. I wasn't afraid of the judge or anything. I just talked to him. And luckily the social worker we got, which we ended up changing social workers 2 or 3 times, but the first social worker I had liked to hunt and he liked to fish, and we just talked like buddies, like me and Roman or me and Randy, fishing buddies. We just talked and got along good. And I don't know, maybe that's why they changed social workers on me, because I was, got along with him too good or whatever. But the judge, we talked to the judge before we went to court, and the judge said, okay, he said, if you guys really want to try to get your son back, this is what you got to do. You got to go to parenting classes, you got to go to outpatient treatment for alcoholism, and do all these things. And I don't know, it was like, I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but my wife's like, no, we're not going to go through this, because she said, I did this before and I still didn't get my kids back. I said, well, we're going to get him back. I said, I know we're going to get him back. I said, if we don't get him back, then it's going to hit the fan, because I'm really going to be mad, and then we'll deal with it then. If it happens, we don't get him back, then we'll deal with it at that time. And we were sitting at the house the one day, and we were talking about all this, going to classes, and we were trying to figure out how we were going to change our lives. And I grew up in a Methodist home, and she grew up Catholic, but neither one of us had been actively going to church for, years. I had went to church in Arkansas for a little while, but that, 15 years ago I was going to church in Arkansas, and I hadn't really been to church since. And anyways, I grew up Methodist, she grew up Catholic. There's no way I was going to go to a Catholic church. I mean, you ain't going to get me in a Catholic church. You're just not. And she's like, well, I ain't going to go to a Methodist church, and there's no Methodist church on the reservation anyways. So we're sitting there, and we're having this argument, back and forth. We're not going to go to each other's churches. And there was a knock on the door. And I got up, and I answered the door, and this short little black girl from Maryland was here. And she had a flyer to come to church here, this church where we're at right now, Randy's Church, Assembly of God, Faith Family Assembly of God. And I looked at the flyer, and I looked at my wife. We weren't married at that time. I looked at Cheryl, and I said, hey, I think I know where we're supposed to go to church. So we're like, well, she didn't think that. I don't know if she thought as much of it as I did, but that was act of God. God was pretty much just telling me, frankly, you need to go to church, and this is where you need to go. So we started coming to church here, and that was 2.5 years ago. Yeah, 2.5 years ago, we started coming to church. And it was the first part of May. I think it was like May 3rd when our son got taken away by social services. It was May 3rd. And that's when my wife quit drinking. And I didn't quit. I drank for a couple more days. She was in jail, and I was still drinking for a couple more days. And it was September, like the middle of September, before we got our son back. And when we finally got him back, I just couldn't, even to this day now, I can't imagine not having him for that long. Hopefully he don't remember too much. He never talks about anything like that, but every once in a while when I go to leave, he kind of freaks out a little bit, and that makes me think, well, he's probably still got some residual memories from when they took him, and it was so hard when they took him, and then they'd bring him to visit, and then it was so hard when they'd take him back, But when we started coming to church, I hadn't mowed my yard for the whole summer, and came to church, and I was talking to Pastor Randy. I just met him, and I was like, Randy, I said, I got all these things I got to do. I'm trying to get my son back. I said, I'm going to start coming to church. I'm going to change my life. I said, I haven't drank for, a week or whatever, but I've been drinking for the last 15, 20 years, And he's like, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, I got to mow my yard. My grass is like 3-4 feet high. He said, well, when are you going to do it? I said, well, I'm going to try to start tomorrow. He said, well, I'll be over at 9 o'clock or whatever, he said. I was like, what? He's going to come help me mow? So he came over, and we spent one day mowing the backyard, one day mowing the front yard, and we spent a couple more days just cleaning up my yard. And that's when, I started building up a bond with Randy. When Randy was willing to do that, then I started being willing to, I helped Randy do anything. We built the things on the back, we built the thing upstairs for the kids, and just anything that Randy needs help with, I'm willing to help him because he's helped me so much. My furnace gave out last year, And then I didn't know what I was going to do. I borrowed a couple electric heaters, and I had like a $300 electric bill for 1 month, or maybe even more than that. I don't know. It was a lot, but someone had donated a furnace to the church, and Randy paid $800 to have that furnace put in my house, and that's the furnace I have now. Just things are just so much different now. You know that we were coming to church, I think, for about a year before we decided we were going to get married. Or Shyler was, I'm trying to think, I don't remember exactly, but we'd been coming about a year, I think, and finally we decided to get married. And we got married, and now we've been married. That's 2 years today. Whoa. 2 years today we have been married. But we've been together for, 3 years, or more than 3.5 years. I'm not sure, but anyways, and the life today that I have now, I mean, it's so much better. I don't miss drinking one bit. I don't miss it at all. I got real friends now. Not the guys that are going to come over if I got beer. I don't have to worry about that anymore. And looking at my son now, man, he's the most precious thing in the world. I can't believe that I was dumb enough to actually drink like that and take a chance on having him getting taken away, just because I was drinking. And God's really done a lot in my life. I mean, when I was younger, I didn't expect to live. I thought I'd die before I had gray hair, and now look at my beard. That was one thing I always remember, that I thought I'd die before I had gray hair, because I was just too wild, I guess. I don't know. But today, I come to church 2-3 times a week, and I don't drink. Haven't drank for 2.5 years, and it's a lot easier to pay your bills when you're not spending all your money on alcohol. I don't even know how we did it, but when we quit drinking, we were so far in debt, it took quite a while to get back on track, but I'm grateful for the church. I'm grateful for Randy, grateful for the Assembly of God, grateful for the Lord himself, just for waking me up, because it took that to wake me up, and now my life, it ain't perfect, but it's a lot better than it ever was, a lot better than it